We continue our search to find phone controllers that are similar to the backbone, but under $100. And I think we found one. Let's get wild. This is the X2 by Gamesir. This controller was released a few years ago, and there are 3 versions of this controller. One with a lightning port for iPhone, obviously, one with the USB Type-C port for those Android phones, and a Bluetooth version that has no jack. In this video, we're only going to focus on the iPhone version, but just so you know, there are different types for you if you have an Android phone or just want to use Bluetooth. Original retail on their site is showing $69.99 US, and I was able to get this on Amazon for $39.99. Diving into the unboxing, the first thing you're presented with is a case to carry the controller, which is a plus, and opening the case, we have our hands on our controller. Just like the backbone one, the style of this controller is similar, where you stretch to expand to put your phone in the device. The controller expands with a max of 6.8 inches, so this should fit most iPhones. And the lightning jack that goes inside the phone is designed to where it can be tilted at an angle, just adding a little bit of extra protection for the lightning jack, and it eases my mind when disconnecting the controller. Using the backbone one, I definitely had some concerns every time I had to disconnect the controller because I felt like I was maybe moving it a little bit too much back, too much forward, and it had no ability to actually tilt at an angle to allow that flexibility so I can just pull it out without having any issues, without having that in the back of my mind, like, oh, don't break this little stick. So I'm glad that this is on this controller. It's actually, they're definitely very thoughtful from the company to add this in here, and I have not seen it on a controller so far. So big ups to them for that. The lightning jack is also longer than what I've seen on these type of controllers, and that's kind of a big deal because now I don't have to take off my case with this controller, which might not seem like a big deal, but it is. Now, this might not work for everyone. It depends on the case, the actual case of your phone. The case I use is pretty thin, so this works perfectly for me. And I'm not sure why there's B-roll on my old worn out case. But if I manage to find this exact case in my Amazon purchase history, I'll leave a link below that like button. The 2 thumbsticks for this controller are small, but thankfully in this little red box, they include 2 pairs of covers that go over the controller with 2 different styles. One set has like the thumb caps pressed in, so there's a slight dip, kind of like an Xbox Series controller. And the other set doesn't really have a dip. It's more of like a Joy-Con or Pro controller, if you kind of have played with those types of controllers before. So it really depends on your preference on that, and I'm glad they actually included those extra options, because the joysticks, not the joysticks, the actual controllers that are attached to the X2, they're definitely smaller overall. Just that top mushroom part of it, it's a lot smaller than I would like. So I'm glad they included these extra options, these extra little accessories to enhance the experience for user to user. Below the right stick is a turbo button, which is nice to have. Unfortunately, in my testing, I was unable to get this to work. And it's possible that, you know, this could be just an issue with this controller that I do have. But honestly, this wasn't a feature that I cared that much about, so I didn't really worry that much about it. But if you're a fan of turbo mapping buttons, this might be a great option for you. Now, above the right stick are, you know, the 4 face buttons. These are smaller and they're kind of similar to the backbone one or a Joy-Con. You know how small those buttons are because that Joy-Con is so small. Same thing with the backbone controller. Those buttons are a lot smaller than what you would get from like a Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller. So just putting that out there, those buttons are kind of tiny, and you know, someone with medium or big size hands might not enjoy the size of those buttons. But using the backbone one for so long, I kind of got used to just having the small buttons, so I didn't mind it that much. But this is going to vary from person to person. The top shoulder and trigger buttons are actually pretty good, and they have this nice clicky feedback sound that you get from them. Turning to the back, we have some soft grips, which feel pretty nice. I can't really complain about that. They just have a nice grippy, soft texture to them. And on the bottom is where we're going to have our lightning port for charging. But there is no audio port at all, and you can't use any kind of lightning headphones with this. I've tried it, didn't work. So unfortunately, you're probably going to have to stick to Bluetooth for your audio, or just play the audio from your phone to get that to work. The D-pad on this controller feels miles better than it did on the Gamesir controller I did last month, and I'm very happy that they went with the traditional style D-pad. It feels great. I have great feedback on this, and that is a big plus when it comes to D-pads, depending on the type of game that you are playing. I find that when I'm trying to play those 2D platform types of games, sometimes I like to use the D-pad instead of the joystick. Overall, my experience was mostly positive with this controller, with one big negative, and that's going to be the size of the controller. I feel like it's just not big enough to fit comfortably in my hand. And I feel if the device had a little bit more length vertically, I would have more of a time enjoying using the device for longer play sessions. So overall, to wrap things up, here's what I think. The big positive is that I don't have to remove my phone case each time I want to use the device. I like the thumbstick accessories that come with this, allowing you to choose the style you prefer. And the buttons feel great. But the two biggest problems that I have, one, no headphone jack, which sucks, but not a full deal breaker. But the bigger issue is that this controller just isn't designed in a way where my hands wrap around it comfortably, and comfort is a big deal when gaming. So at the original price at $70, you probably shouldn't buy this. But if you can find it at $40 or below, then you probably won't be disappointed. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay wild, gamers. Later.